Critical thinking in the workplace. Why is common sense so rare? My goal is to show you how critical thinking is viewed from a business perspective, as well as a personal understanding that can help you individually in your personal lives. So let's get started. Critical thinking is the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. The word critical derives etymologically from two Greek roots, kritikos, meaning discerning judgment, and criterion, meaning standards. Etymologically, then, the word implies the development of discerning judgment based on standards. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, I know this is a mouthful, and it's more of a reference point than a presentable definition. I decided to include it to give you an example of critical thinking in practice, so let me explain again. What is critical thinking? Killing complexity. It's really that simple. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Albert Einstein. The most difficult obstacle for a critical thinker is expressing an idea understandably. Einstein's special theory of relativity is understood by so few people that the irony of this quote is not lost on me, but nevertheless it is relevant here. Critical thinking is the #1 most important skill for business growth, according to employers. Employers want workers who can both think outside the box as well as communicate effectively. The problem is that these two skills are usually diametrically opposed. In general, someone who is adept at seeing things differently lacks in communication, and vice versa. Employers want critical thinkers. Job postings which mention critical thinking have doubled from 2009 to 2015. According to a recent survey, 60% of managers claim the new graduates they see taking jobs within their organizations do not have the critical thinking and problem-solving skills they feel are necessary for the job. On the other side of the table, though, recent graduates seem to feel, for the most part, that they are going into their new gigs reasonably prepared. When asked whether they were well prepared, 87% of recent grads said they were, but only 50% of managers seem to feel that way. So if you feel you possess critical thinking skills, I would suggest you use those skills to determine whether or not you do. 69.1% of employers assess critical thinking skills during the hiring process. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be? I was asked this question in an interview. This is exactly the type of question to see if the interviewer could think of on their feet. Luckily, I had been so engrossed in this presentation leading up to the interview, I could answer that I would have the power of discernment, being able to distinguish between relevant and irrelevant information to get to the heart of a given problem. And yes, I did get a call back for the co-op position in case any of you were wondering. Do you know who these two men are? I'm not saying you should, but who they are and what they did are paramount to understanding why common sense, i.e. critical thinking, is so rare. Horace Mann is credited as the father of the modern educational system in America. After reviewing various educational styles, Mann traveled to Prussia, now known as Germany, in 1837 to study their educational system, which he later adopted and brought to America. Egerton Ryerson also brought the Prussian model to Canada after he studied in Prussia and after having close discussions with Mann. In 1806, Prussia was defeated by Napoleon. It was decided that the reason the battle was lost was because soldiers were thinking for themselves. To make sure this didn't happen again, a new 8-year system of schooling was created to provide a strict education that taught duty, discipline, respect for authority, and the ability to follow orders. The purpose of the Prussian educational system is to instill loyalty to the crown and to train young men for the military and bureaucracy. To do this, it was necessary to squeeze out all independent thinking from the masses. Who founded the Prussian model of education? Why, none other than Johann Gottlieb Fichte. Let me read one of his quotes. Education should aim at destroying free will, so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable, throughout the rest of their lives, of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. So that doesn't sound like a very nice guy with this quote, so who is this Johann Gottlieb Fichte anyways? Well, I'm glad you asked. Why, Johann Gottlieb Fichte He's the spiritual father of neo-Nazism. Yes, that's right. The American and Canadian educational systems are founded upon a model developed by this guy. But why? So why would the father of American education, Horace Mann, make it a law that every child spend their youth in a system created by the father of neo-Nazism? The answer is this. The Prussian system is designed for the good of the government, not the individual. For the past 180 years, our children have had their imaginations and independence eradicated through an educational system that indoctrinates the masses to regurgitate information, follow orders, and not question authority. This is why businesses are experiencing waves of highly educated drones who cannot think for themselves and require incessant micromanaging. Judy Negengast said that she has come across young graduates who can memorize and they can regurgitate, but who struggle to turn book learning into problem solving at work. The current paradigm puts businesses in the double bind scenario of requiring a high education for application to job openings while simultaneously demanding the critical thinking skills that the higher education has nullified. Critical thinking can facilitate a more productive environment, eliminate unnecessary rules or regulations, create more efficient and streamlined working conditions. Critical thinking is a desirable trait in any employee. Scrutinizing applicants to assess whether they exhibit this trait, in my opinion, is not worthy of the effort when these ways of thinking can be fostered in existing employees. But if you do find one of these types by happenstance, grab hold and don't let go. Thanks for listening.